So number 4, planning around it. Now this is one of these insidious things that starts to happen when you sort of have the beginnings of problems. Sometimes you become very reluctant to go anywhere where you can't have a drink. So I mean, I know that alcohol is a big part of our social culture, and a lot of people who are heavy drinkers aren't alcoholics, but there's a certain feeling if you're an alcoholic and you can't have a drink when you want one. You get very sort of irritable about it. You get very sort of, if your drinking time is delayed, like if someone's late for, going to the pub or something, you get really, oh my God, why are they being so late? So you start at home anyway and stuff like that. So yeah, planning around it, not going places where you can't get access to alcohol. Or maybe if you are arranging social events, you'll make sure it's somewhere, where you can get alcohol. So that's another one which kind of slips in there, and if you notice you're doing it, I mean, one of the reasons for doing this list is because it's one of these illnesses that you can actually deny for a long time that you've got it. So that's something to watch for, that may be the start of that. Number 5, pretending you're not drunk. Right. Now I know a lot of people do this. A lot of people when they're drunk pretend they aren't, even though it's really, really obvious that they are. But on a night out, the person that doesn't necessarily have a problem with alcohol, that's just got a bit wasted and a bit silly, will be sitting there kind of insisting, no, I'm not drunk, I'm fine, like that sort of thing. Whereas if you've got a problem with alcohol, you're more likely to become very, very angry or indignant at someone suggesting that you might be drunk. And the thing about it that makes it, where you know that you've got a problem, is when you're starting to believe it yourself. Like I used to do this. I would get drunk and then phone up like my mum, my dad, or something like that, and they'd be like, they knew I had a problem. They'd be like, have you been drinking? You sound like you've been drinking. And I'd be like, no, and I'd get angry about even being accused, and I would sit there to myself going, how dare they? You know what I mean? Even though I was like, this is part of the delusional part of alcoholic thinking, where you kind of feel really angry and resentful at someone, even though you actually have been. It's a strange thing. And that brings me on to number 6, actually, which is illogical thinking. Now, people that aren't alcoholics don't understand a lot of this. But it is that, like the last example, it's that sort of, just complete and utter lack of kind of cognitive understanding of what you're doing to yourself. For example, I mean, people partake of behaviours that normal people wouldn't do. I've heard of people, for example, it's like making justifications for your drinking and really believing them as well. Things like, I've heard of people who are on diets, and they'll actually count out the amount of sort of calories that they can get from alcohol, and then like minimise whatever they're eating to account for those calories. That's not a sane way to behave. Like, okay, I'm allowed a litre of this today, that will give me that many calories, I can only have a salad now for the rest of the day. That's what people with an addiction to alcohol will do. Other things like just justifying to yourself that it's okay to drink in certain circumstances when it's really not. Things like, I know people get drunk and disorderly, drunk driving and stuff like that, who don't have issues with it. They just make a bad mistake or a bad decision. But people that have addiction problems will do that over and over again, and they'll kind of justify it. Like, people will leave their kids in the house or something to go and buy alcohol, and then they'll say, it's good that I did that because actually, I don't want them in the car with me when I'm drunk. So they'll leave a small child at home on their own, and say that's okay because at least I'm not driving them drunk. Just weird things like that sort of happen in the alcoholic mind. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just part of the illness. It's something that we sort of all do. Thank God I never had kids or learnt to drive. That's all I can say, because I did my fair share of logical thinking too. So the next one, finding excuses to drink. We've covered this a little bit. But people who have the addiction will find any excuse to drink. Again, I know it's like it's part of society to drink at birthdays and weddings and all stuff like that. That's fairly normal. But people that want an excuse to drink will find anything. It can be bad news, it can be good news, It can be you've broken a fingernail. Some people, and I've done this, will even start fights with people just so they can go away and drink at them. You know, it's like, look what you made me do. And actually you started the fight because really you wanted to drink. Somewhere in your subconscious you caused it. I mean, partly you might know this consciously, but it's always in the back of your mind. That's a very, you know, that's a very strong trait of it actually being alcoholism, not like a drinking problem, but a proper drinking problem. So that's another one. Next one, I can't read my own writing, I've written little bits down here. Oh yeah, inability to see that actually alcohol is causing all your problems. Now, some people start drinking because they have a problem and they're trying to solve it or mask it or make it feel better. I did that. I started drinking because I had an anxiety disorder and I had agoraphobia, and I just couldn't function like everyone else because everything made me terrified. Eating in front of people, going outside, going shopping, everything made me scared. But after a time, there were massive consequences to my drinking. Even though it was helping me to sort of function, get outside and stuff, I ended up, because my tolerance went up, I would drink more and more, and, you know, I would end up wasted like every single day, really. Throughout the day I'd maintain sort of some level of kind of, you know, tipsiness, and then at the end of the day I'd just let it all out, like when I was at home or something. Now this caused massive like arguments and things with my relationships. I would go out and do not very nice things, and then I would get, you know, I'd get myself in these awful situations. I'd be in trouble with the law, I'd be in trouble with my relationships, all of this stuff with friends. And then I would kind of drink on top of it and go, well, you know what, if you had my life, you'd drink too, you know? And actually, that wasn't the answer, because what was happening was my alcoholism was causing more problems than it actually solved in the first place. A lot of people get stuck in that trap because it's very understandable that people turn to alcohol when they've got issues, because actually it does, you know, in the short term, it can sort of help those issues. There's no denying it. But a little bit down the line, it's such a different story, and you'll just wish you never started. So it's the same with drugs. That's a very common pattern with drugs as well, where people start taking it recreationally, thinking, you know what, this will make me forget stuff for a while, and then it starts causing so many more problems than you ever dreamt you would have. So yeah, but a lot of people with the addiction can't see that. They can't see it. They see it the other way around. They see it as, I'm doing this because of all this in the rest of my life, rather than realising that actually what you're doing is contributing to that. So that's another important one.